he got 2 points.
All right, good morning, everyone. How are you doing? Great. So today we're going to talk about the supply side of education. So far we focused a lot on the demand side, which has to do with students, what schools they choose to go to, and also what the returns to education to students. And we're going to pivot now to talk about schools. And we're going to specifically in this lecture talk about the linkage between school inputs and school outputs, right? And then we're going to talk about what are those inputs and outputs. So there are 2 different taxonomies that we're going to look at. We're going to look at contemporaneous, we're going to look at contemporaneous versus later measures of outputs. We're also going to look at valuable versus non-valuable measures of inputs. And then what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the school production function. So what we saw previously when we first started the course was what's the production function of a variable. So maybe you take capital labor to produce chairs. Or you take capital labor to produce desks. We're going to talk about what are the inputs that we use to produce this output. So we look at a production function approach of education or school supply. Then we're also going to look at a hedonic approach, which is really looking at how much is someone willing to pay for school. So one way to think about this is if you have a house consists of a lot of different components. And the question is, how much of that house value is going to be driven by the amount of bedrooms that's in it, how much is going to be driven by the amount of kitchens in it, how much is going to be driven by the garage space, etc. So you take the whole thing and you break it down into its components, right? So that's the notion behind the hedonic regression. And then we're going to talk about value-added measures, which have to do with looking at what is, and this is specifically important in terms of measuring teacher productivity. So you take a student at time T, that student is taught, or that student is treated with some amount of educational inputs, and then you look at what's the output for, like say for example, the test scores of that student at some time 13 plus 1. And you look at the differences over time to see what is the value added of that particular input. So that's just going to give you a roadmap of what we're going to do today. There are 2 handouts that I passed out. So the first one is a paper. You guys all have the paper. So this is a paper that just summarizes some of the, if you raise your hand if you need a copy of the paper. So this just summarizes a lot of the empirical work, a lot of the data work that's been done on trying to measure the impact of classroom size and student outcomes, test scores in particular. So I want you to read this before class on Thursday. We're going to dig in more deeply to some of the things that were discussed in this article. What I've tried to do with this course is to make it as most of your learning is going to happen in the classroom and in your study groups. I know that there's some courses where you have tons of reading. And it's been my experience that students don't like to read. So I've tried to save you the pain of that and save myself the disappointment of assignment reading that you don't do. So when I do give something to read, I expect you to read it. And the things that are in the article, they can appear on a final or on a test. So I'll try to be very judicious in terms of what I choose for you to read when I do assign something to you. If you're looking for, this article actually is drawn out of this book called The Economics of Education, which is a collection of like really short articles. I did not design this textbook for the course because it's a pretty expensive textbook, and I want to be mindful of your budgets. And then also too, there will be select articles that we pull from. So the articles that we can pull from, and I will make it available to you. But if you have a lot of money and you'd like to purchase it, it's a fabulous textbook. It covers a lot of issues in education. Feel free to get it. So it's The Economics of Education by Brewer and Keeler. So, all right. The second thing that you have is, so this is just a printout of slides. So this is from a paper by Blair, McMillan, and Ferreira, 2007. Let me write this down. So you can put this at the top of the page. This is 2007 in the journal. Political economy. When we come to talking about hedonics, we're going to look at this graph. And so this is just going to walk us through how the authors used school attendance zones to figure out what's the value that households place on education. So the idea is very, it's a very clever idea, but it's also a very simple idea, which is you have these school attendance zones, and you look at houses that are on either side of the school attendance zone. And in one case, you're going to be on the good side of the boundary, where you get to go to the really nice schools. On the other side of the boundary, you're going to be going to the schools. You're going to be in the school attendance zone that's at a slightly lower quality, right? And then, but in terms of the neighborhoods themselves should be pretty similar because it's literally the other side of the street that they're looking at. And so you have similar neighborhoods, similar types of houses, but the house prices are going to be very different. And so the thing that's going to be driving the differences in those house prices is going to be the differences in the school quality. So you can then look at the difference in the house prices across the school attendance zone boundary to infer how much a household is willing to pay for better schools. How many of you, when you were growing up, had your parents talk about where they lived in relationship to like how good the schools were? So that's that half of the class. What were some of the things that your parents said? What's your number from this discussion, if you don't mind sharing?
Property taxes.
Say a little bit more about that.
I mean, just in my county, New York, there's really high property taxes, but it all went to the public schools.
Right, so like a lot of property taxes are going to go to financing the public schools. And so you might be willing to go to an area where, you might be willing to pay a lot more to go to an area where there are better schools, right? Because you know that your property taxes are directly to funding the schools. Other folks that want to share their recollections of those conversations. And the point of this just really is to let you know that a lot of what we study in economics is really tethered to the real world experiences. And so as you think about what you do as an economist, you want to be a very keen observer of the world. And you want to think, how can I use the intuition that I've built from observing the world to answer a policy question that I'm interested in? Or sometimes it's the reverse. I observe something in the real world that I think has important policy implications that have not been explored. Okay, so that's this handout. We'll walk through this. So what I'll do is I'll stop in the middle of class to like have you go through this so that you really follow this. I've picked out the key parts of the paper that highlight the methodology. So hang on to this. You certainly want to keep these with your lecture notes. You want to be familiar with these documents that I'm handing out in class because something like this could appear on the line. But more importantly, it's going to be valuable for your broader education. Okay. So let's get started. I'm going to do these things. Okay. So in this unit, the question that we want to ask is, do better schools produce better outcomes? And to make progress on this, we have to really ask ourselves, what does it mean to have a better school? And also we have to define what are going to be the outcomes that we're going to be looking at, right? And so what might be a notion that we might use to define like a better school?
Low student-to-teacher ratio.
Exactly, student-to-teacher ratio, other things. High quality teachers. And so you're talking about the inputs, right? And so by better, by a better school, we mean a school with either more positive inputs and or less negative inputs. So for example, imagine that you're at a school that's in a neighborhood where there's a lot of gang violence. And a lot of the kids that go to the school are in gangs, right? That can be a negative input. And so a better school in this context is a school that has less gangbangers in it, right? That has more positive inputs and more less negative outputs. That has less negative inputs, sorry, or that has higher quality inputs. What's the difference between a Salisbury steak and a filet mignon? It's all coming from the same animal, right? But it's a different quality. You don't know. Okay. Who knows the difference between these two kinds of food? Yeah? Don't be ashamed. Right, it's just a lower quality, piece of meat. And this is the point that you raised, right? So it's like, for example, in the context of a high school, what could be a measure of teacher quality? The school that they went to, right? The experience. And so, for example, if you have a school where more of the teachers have graduate degrees, that could be a higher quality school. Or a school where more of the teachers went to reputable colleges, that could be a high quality school too, because presumably those teachers know how to transition your student from high school to college, and not just any college, but a really great college at Clemson. And so we're going to think both in terms of the quantity and the quality of inputs. Okay, so let's look at some So let's look at some inputs. And we'd start off with inputs that we call malleable. Who knows what malleable means? What does malleable mean?
Changeable.
Changeable, okay, good. So what is an example of malleable inputs for the school level, at the school level? Things that you can change about school. Yep. So an example could be teacher characteristics, and that's actually the first one. So this is kind of like Family Feud. I have some questions. It's like survey says. Teacher characteristics. That was really good. I actually like Steve Harvey as the host. He's really good. But sometimes you get people that will say like really awkward things because in the moment they want to say. It's like they don't have a filter because they want to get the points of the board, but in hindsight, like, oh my god, I just said this on national television. This is super embarrassing. So for example, there's certification, and then education level quality. For those of you in the back here, can you read down here? You can? Okay, great. Okay, what are some other examples of valuable inputs?
How much they students they enroll.
Yeah, so for example, like class size. And I guess you can also think about total enrollment too, right? And that's actually number 2. You guys are doing great. What's another example of valuable input?
Courses offered.
That was not on it, so you get some extra points for that. What are some other examples?
This is kind of general for any level of school, correct?
So you can think general for any level of school, but in particular you can think about, like a lot of these metrics have been developed in the context of pre-K to 12. But they apply to universities as well, too. Other examples, yeah?
I'm not sure what these schools are about, but sometimes schools focus more on it's just like studying like agriculture or something like that. That's the skill school, high school, or whatever.
Right, so you have like magnet schools, for example, or you have like schools that have specific. So that can be like, you can have curriculum plus like school focus / speed. Well, so this might not be malleable, right? Because if you have a school that's an agricultural school, So we can get this into non-valuable. So you can take this out for a minute here. Because it actually might take a lot to move a school. Say, for example, you like the Bronx School of Science or science schools. You'd have to fundamentally change the character of the school to do that. And so when we get to non-valuable, let's go to that. Okay. There's something important that's missing from here. What else is valuable?
Resources.
Yes.
Chairs.
So resources. So for example, spending per pupil. What else too? So remember we said that in terms of better school, we're talking about more positive inputs and less negative inputs. I remember the example that I used here.
I was just gonna say, like extracurricular activities.
Okay, so we can put that, we can put curriculum plus extracurricular activities. And there's one other thing that's really important. The survey has this on here. Yes, here's quality of peers. And by peers, what we mean is fellow students. Okay. So, for example, who knows what the average SAT score is at Clemson? Yeah, exactly. That's actually pretty good. So it's 1236, right? And so that puts Clemson in probably the 80+ percentile of the SAT distribution. And so when you come to Clemson, you're not wondering, can this person on the side of me read or write? So at the beginning of this class, what I did was I asked you guys to organize yourself into groups, right? Now imagine that you were going to a school where the distribution of skills was really large. From somebody that has like a 400 on the SAT to a 1600, you might be really reluctant to do that because you would say, well, I don't know if the person on the side of me is going to be good enough for me to do that, right? So pair quality is actually extremely important. It turns out that a big part of the experience of the college is like your peers, because you live with them, you go to football games with them, you eat in the dining hall with them, you spend a lot more time with your peers than probably your professors. So these are the valuable inputs. What about the non-valuable inputs? Before we go here, why is it important for us to think about the valuable inputs when trying to answer this question, do better schools produce better outcomes? What's kind of the policy significance of trying to understand what are the inputs that are changeable, I guess, that are susceptible to change? Let's see if someone else has an answer.
I thought it'd be hard to like determine which one's a better school if you didn't know like which characteristics to like determine or use to determine.
You're close, right? So you're saying it would be hard to determine which one is the better school if you don't know the inputs. But that, can you make that a little bit more precise? So these are the characteristics about a school that we know that we can change. So what can we do about these if we cared about improving education?
I guess you could like compare them to like other schools and see like which ones change and like make a bigger difference.
Exactly, right? So these are things about the school that can change that we believe might have a relationship to the outcomes and outputs that we care about, right? And so if these things can change, then it's like, well, let's change them and see what happens, right? And let's see which of these are actually going to be the most beneficial in terms of driving progress, right? So from a policy standpoint, you really want to think a lot about what things are changeable. The costs of changing them could also potentially be lower as well too, right? Okay, so let's think about some of the non-valuable. Let's think about some of the non-valuable inputs. So what are some of the non-valuable inputs?
Location.
Okay. Or like geography here. That's a good guess. So like, so parental background. So if we have like a given student, like we can't change the student. If we think that parents matter a lot for education, we can't change whether the person is dad went to college or not, right? So this would be like education. We also have family size. And we can say, well, okay, if kids that come from smaller families tend to do better, so what we're going to do is we're going to randomly kind of take away children from someone's family to improve their educational outcomes, right? That's something that, it sounds crazy, but there's a lot of ethical restrictions on these kinds of things, right? So for example, you know, like the number of kids in the family affect time spent per kid by the parents. You can also have a situation too where the kid having more kids that go to the same school too can also have a positive effect because you know exactly what's happening down the pike. So in my case, I have 6 brothers and I have 6 older brothers, and we all went to the same elementary school. And so by the time as it came for me to go through the elementary school, I knew exactly what was going on, right? I knew who would be my 6th grade teacher, I knew who she was like, and I was able to navigate that environment like very successfully because I had a lot of brothers. I also speak French, and why do I speak French? Well, because my brothers took French in high school. And so we had all the textbooks there, and when they wanted to say something that they didn't want me to understand, they would say it in French. And so I thought, I'm gonna learn French so that they can never tell secrets about me, right? And so like the family size is something that's something that I can't change. That was in a sense like assigned to me, effectively. Okay. And then also parental involvement. PT attendance. Okay. Say that again?
That's really not knowledgeable.
No, it's a good question. That's a good question. So we can put this in quotes. So you can, this is something, no, that's a good point. That's a very good point. Do accept it. Do accept it, yeah. But this kind of shows you like the way that economists tend to think about things, right? It's like, okay, we are dealing with the individual and not with the community. And what you say is a very kind of important counterpoint to that. So I'll put this in quotes. Thank you for that. Okay, good. So now let's talk about output. As we talk through output, we could have contemporaneous outputs. And then we can also have like future or later outputs. What are some examples of contemporaneous measures of output? And so one thing that we should keep in mind is what we're taking is we have inputs leading to outputs. We care about the outputs. And we can change these guys. Change the inputs. Right? So we care about kids having high levels of education, because if they have higher levels of education, they'll earn more money, they'll be more productive citizens, and they'll have better families, et cetera, right? And we can influence that through changing these inputs. So what are some examples of, so let's say we were to change teacher characteristics or class size or curriculum or so on and so forth. What are some output measures that those changes will drive, that are contemporaneous, meaning that they can happen like right now? Like if I change, like for example, if we took this class and split it in half and said I'm going to teach one section and then I'm going to teach the other section separately in smaller classes. What are some of the outputs that could change if we were to change these inputs? And that would change contemporaneously. Performance, right? So for example, scores on standardized tests. The standardization of the test is important because that allows us to have a more objective measure of it. Attendance, so school attendance. How many of you have been in like a really large lecture hall with like 300 students? How incentivized do you feel to go to those lectures? But imagine if you had like a seminar, a junior seminar with 5 people. How many of you would miss that class? Because it's being monitored, right? So you change the class size and all of a sudden that has a huge impact on attendance. The other thing to that can change is like dropout rates. So these are things that can change contemporaneously, and there are other measures too. And the reason why it's important to draw this temporal distinction is because if we're going to be using resources to change these inputs, we need to know what outputs we care about, and we need to know how long we need to wait until we see those changes. Right? Are any of you guys in here or gals gym fanatics? Right? How many of you want like really like buff muscles and like 6-pack abs and all these other things, right? And you say, well, okay, I want to get some really amazing abs for the summer, and I'm going to. The summer is tomorrow, and I'm going to change my diet tomorrow, and I expect results. I'm going to change my diet today, and I expect results tomorrow. Is that going to happen? No. Right? But if you change your diet today, in like 6 months, maybe you start to look like really ripped, like Chris Pratt, or like Zac Efron. Right? But then if you change your diet today, something that might change contemporaneously might be that you sleep better. You're going to eat potato chips, but you eat salad, you start to sleep better today. And so we need to know which outputs are contemporaneous versus going to happen in the future, so that when we do our measurement and our evaluation, we're looking at the right time window from measuring how the inputs have changed the outputs. Because if you measure too early and the thing is going to change later on, you might see there's no effect, but you just didn't wait long enough. Okay. What are some future measures of outputs? Like things that will happen way down the line. Yeah. So we can say quality of citizenship. Earnings.
Donations.
Say that again.
Alumni donations.
Yep. Alumni donations. Future educational attainment. Future educational attainment. Attainment. Then what I'll call as being, and this is kind of related to the quality of the citizenship, but I'll call these non-cognitive skills. Like patience, persistence, sociability. So those might change as well too. Yeah. And things in quality of citizenship might be like level of criminality, for example. Tax adherence. Voting. Say that again?
Voting intelligence.
Okay. No comment.
Probably was.
Yeah, okay. All right, so the first rationale that I gave you is that we need to know the time scale of the output so that we can know when to measure them. The second thing too is that some contemporaneous measures might fade, right? And so you might see some gains today, but then they might fade. And so by having these long-term measures too, we can see what happens in the long run. So that's another reason for this. Okay, so Now, we've done, so we talked about these guys here. Now let's look at the school production function. Just like a firm production function, it takes inputs and it maps them into outputs. So what we're going to do to set this up is, okay. So let yi be the outcome that we measure. For example, test scores. And then let xi be our inputs. Okay? So now what we can do is we can say that the production function approach says that, for example, yi, so this is the output for person I, is going to be equal to some function of input 1 for person I. So this, for example, can be, let's say, class size. And then x2i, so this is input 2. So this is input 1 for person I. And this is input 2. Person I. For example, I'm going to use here. Peer quality. Well, that's a teacher quality. Right? And then we can add in this epsilon I. So these would be, what would the epsilon I be here? Would be the error. So that's kind of the technical term, but what does the error capture?
It's like the difference in prediction that like can't be accounted for. So basically like, it's like the sum of all the residuals or things that like are hard to measure by themselves.
Right.
I'm sure with it.
So like let's think about like conceptually, what does the error measure? So what we've said is that the test scores are going to depend only on class size and teacher quality. Are we capturing everything that can affect test scores? No. So what is the error doing?
Could possibly affect it, but it's not directly correlated.
Well, it's so this is closer. So what the error is going to capture is what are the other factors about what are the other factors that affect student output or student test scores other than what's been included here. So what are these unobserved factors or unaccounted for factors? Does that make sense? And so it definitely is the error term, but always remember that this is not capturing everything that explains student outcome. And so this residual here is saying, what else is left of that?